June something. I'm imagining it. June 27th is MMA Junkie Radio pre-show. We have Robert Follis in studio today. He's going to break some stuff down, and I'm hoping he slaps around some people, some callers that have been calling in the last couple days. Tell us what's really going on in the world of mixed martial arts. Dan Tom's going to back us up today. He's going to be me today. And George is going to be George. He's not that good at being George. Dan's better at being me.
Who do I get to be today?
What's that, Danny?
Do I get to be somebody today? What do I get to be today?
You can be Marissa today.
I never want to be that.
Well, how about there's Victoria? You want to be her? There's not many options.
What?
You can be Dan. How about that?
Okay.
All right. Looks like we have 2 minutes. George should be here any second. It's what celebrities do, you know. They just walk in right at the last second. He'll be here any second. And today is our last show of the week. Remember, we were going to take a 3-day vacation, but we're still breaking down what happened at Bellator, what happened in UFC. There's a lot to cover, and I feel like we only touched on it a little bit. So we'll definitely get into that. We could take your guys' calls. Dan, I don't know if I showed you, but the call thing is right here. If you ever want to pull that up.
The numbers?
Yeah.
Cool.
And that's pretty
Coming
much
up in a minute.
What'd you have for breakfast, Danny?
I had an apple and some nuts and some tea.
You never disappoint.
It was chai.
No? One day I just want him to break out the sausage and eggs or something. Every day it's always some nuts or an apple. Yeah. How's their little breakfast sandwich? Is that pretty good? Yeah. You know that this line right here at Starbucks gets so long that it's actually faster to walk to Luxor, wait in their little one, and come back. That's how long that thing gets.
You know what I wanted to say, Goes? I just remember this. That Starbucks was right where I got off the elevators, so I stopped there every morning. It was perfect.
The one at Luxor?
Yeah, it was perfect. All right, coming up in 5. Stand by.
Yeah, me and the girlfriend's go-to breakfast sometimes is the Starbucks one. It's her coffee in the morning.
This is your captain speaking. We are making our descent into Las Vegas McCarran Airport. On behalf of our crew, we'd like to thank you for flying MMA Junkie Airlines. Now please fasten your seatbelts and put your tray tables in your upright position because the descent is going to be a little bit bumpy.
All right, Junkie Nation, it's time to roll, baby, on MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Go. This is what we doing while we do it, baby. All night long, we rollin'! Yes!
The MMA Junkie Radio revolution is upon us.
Can you dig it?
There's no escape. No escape. Through the vast frontier of cyberspace and through a sea of stars in outer space.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We've solidified our combat communications stranglehold.
We are controlling transmission.
With the use of MMA Junkie Radio and SiriusXM satellite radio technology. MMA Junkie Radio. Commence transmission. Live from MMA Junkie Radio HQ in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Here are your hosts, Gorgeous George and Goes.
From the fight capital of the world, inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Racing Sportsbook, you are listening to the MMA Junkie Radio Show, the only show that matters. I'm your host, Gorgeous George. With me, as always, is the devious and dastardly Goes, our ace co-host, hanging out in the back. Danny's our producer. He's back east, sitting to my left. Dan Tom, the MMA analyst. What's up, Dan?
What's going on, guys?
All right. Extreme Couture's head coach, co-head coach, Robert Follis. What's up, Robert? You and Dennis still share that title, right? Yeah, okay. Good to have the XC in the house here. You still training there a lot, Dan, lately? Or?
Was just talking to Coach here. Not as much as I should, and he can attest to that.
Have I been going in there more often than you?
You might have in 2017.
I'm making an appearance, right, once a month?
2017, you might have, yes. Yeah, actually, I've seen you. You've been in there more than me.
You know, I'm sitting there in the bleachers just sitting with the other fans and letting them know what's going on or whatever. I don't really step on the mat. I don't want to get in the way of the pros, but, yeah.
Absolutely.
That's my role.
But that's a good time to go in, though. You're going into the best time, I imagine, right?
Yeah. Yeah, at first it was to psych him out for the flag football game that we were gonna have.
Scouting.
Yeah, I was seeing who's got wind. Not too good. No, not too good. How come you weren't there? You do? Where do you find the time? I just saw you in New Zealand, right, with Elliot. Oklahoma. Oh, you're a bodyguard. Okay. This is here in Vegas. You can't name any current execs that you protect, or can you? Mm. In the past, can you name a name from the past, not a current name? No? It's all confidential for life? Oh, you don't talk about it. Oh, we just want to know, like, on what level, I guess. Really? All right. So millionaires not need to apply. It has to be a billionaire. They're closer to the billionaire than to being not a millionaire? Gotcha. All right. How is that job? Is it interesting?
It's interesting. Like, sometimes it's boring as all get out. Sometimes it's very interesting.
Are they rude? Like, see yourself out. I don't need you right now.
Everybody's an individual. Some of them have been nice as can be, and some of them are just disinterested that you're there.
Right.
So it's really just up to you.
But they're interested if the guns come out, right? Throw your body in front of mine. Protect me. Right. Huh. Interesting. I didn't know that about Robert Follis. Did you know that?
Well, if you follow him, I follow Robert on Instagram, and he can't talk about the executives and stuff. But if you know Robert, I'm sure even if you just follow him on the Instagram there, you'll see him doing like tactical driving, tactical, with weapons, close quarter combat, all these different types of drills. Not just going out firing rounds or this, which obviously seems to keep up on here and could tell you on. But again, I would not want to mess with this guy. If the zombie apocalypse started, you guys always do that hypothetical.
Mm-hmm.
You all need to start including Robert Follis in that hypothetical. I'm telling you.
You got it.
It's a good team member.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
All right. Can you
Unless
lower your
you're a
mic?
zombie.
Can you lower your mic just a little bit? No, I'm not a zombie. I'm not. Sometimes
once the apocalypse comes, somebody's going to be a zombie.
Sometimes on the weekends after a night of drinking, I turn into a zombie.
And we've all been there.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have you here. The one storyline that's not dominated the show in the last 24 hours is your boy Kevin Lee versus Michael Chiesa, the headliner at UFC Fight Night 112 in Oklahoma City. Kevin Lee won, got his hand raised, but of course, with that came some controversy on the side of referee Mario Yamasaki, and of course, it didn't help that Michael Chiesa and Dana White both, lambasted the guy. For what I felt was, I stand by what I said yesterday. All he did was jump the gun a split second to what would have been the same ending anyway. I believe he was on his way out. I'm not buying this whole I'm relaxing thing from Chiesa. I respect him. I think he's a great fighter. Just because you lose to another great fighter doesn't mean you're not a great fighter and that you can't be a future world champion. But on that particular night, he was on his way to going to sleep. I've watched it many times. I've consulted many people. Far more accolades than me in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I know these eyes have watched a lot of fights, and I've learned a lot about the game, and that to me looked like a guy that was in the process of going limp, and all Yamasaki did was just react sooner than what he should, because he should let him go out or tap out, Those are my thoughts, but you were closer than I, and I want to know how you saw it all.
I needed to watch it again as well. I mean, in watching it, and again, I love Chiesa. Chiesa's a great guy. I've known him for years. I know the guys from his camp. I know his coach. Like, these are all great guys, and man, I'm not upset that they're arguing it. I would too. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, you're always looking for that edge. You want to make a case for a rematch. You want to make those things. But really, in watching it, the choke was very deep. He went from hand fighting to not hand fighting, and it wasn't like he gave a thumbs up. It wasn't like he was coherent. You see him go limp, and really his hands did one of two things. He either tried to tap and couldn't because he was going out, or he was going into convulsions. Mm-hmm. One of the two, and with those things, like if Mario was in a damned if he did, damned if he didn't, in my opinion. If he would have let it go another 2 seconds, he would have been completely out, and everybody would be like, he was trying to tap. Why did you stop it and do your? I looked at the clock. I was to be like, if you're relaxed at that point. I think he was going into La La Land. I've been in that spot. I was talking with Vinny when I got back to the gym yesterday, and he was like, "Oh, that's what a guy when he's first going out, and if you let go right away, he'll jump up and be like, I'm fine, the man." But I would love to see him get in and ref some of those situations and be held accountable and see how easy it is. It's not easy when you're in that spot to see what's happening that fast and make a call on. Like I said, if you'd have let it go another 2 seconds, people would have been like, he was clearly out. Why didn't you stop it?
And Mario is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's
been doing this a
for
long
years.
time. And look,
he saw that even with the palm-to-palm, he eliminated Chiesa's ability to defend in any way because he was tucked in nicely. He was looking at his eyes. He saw the way the body went limp. And here's the thing I learned yesterday, Robert. You know what you were talking about, checking the arm, like the old Hulk Hogan move for pro wrestling. A lot of the referees are being told not to do that because of the way the body can also be rigid and not limp. So the data you're expecting to receive in terms of a body going out.
Eyes stay open. I've seen guys stay open. They look like they're awake. They're not. But like you watch his legs. You watch the whole thing. I mean, I've watched this now 40 times because all the controversy. I was like, I don't want to get on and just be playing a favorite to my guy. I want to be honest about it. And again, I can honestly say I wish it would have gone another second or two, but I still don't think it was a bad stoppage. And I think that the outcome was inevitable. I don't think it was, when Chiesa said I shrugged my shoulders, I'm like, well, if you watch the video, his shoulders are down. Like he wasn't doing the things that he thought he said he was doing. He wasn't looking at the ref. You know what I mean? Like, that choke got deep, and I'm telling you right now, Kevin has an amazing. I mean, that's 4 rear naked chokes in a row.
It is.
Come on, he's good at that move.
He had the body lock triangle to the outside, and his hips and chest.
The pressure he gets
pushing up. It was to the T.
The pressure he gets is unbelievable. He is a very strong man.
Yeah, he sure is. Dan, have you seen? Well, of course you have. Have you seen it multiple times, different angles? Gotten input from others, and what's your assessment here?
I looked at the replay online. I watched the post-fight show, saw the replays there, and my assessment was I was one of those people that was upset with the call initially. Yes, because of emotion like everybody else, but also because I believe that it didn't surprise me that Kevin Lee got at the back. I actually thought he was going to submit him there, and I just was more upset at the time just because I just knew that, this is immediately going to take away. I was doing the math. It's like, it's going to take away from Lee. This is going to take away from. So I'm more on that side of it. It wasn't like, Chiesa was going to get out. And I'm sure, all bias aside, Robert Follis will break it down for you great, as far as, the chest to back, the body triangle. Right. And even people saying that the choke was on, the wrong choking arm. Robert will explain to you that's kind of a fallacy there. That's not an absolute truth.
I think a lot of people have I haven't heard anybody say he was going to get out besides Chiesa.
Yeah.
Everybody said he was going to sleep anyway. So the controversy is really not controversy. The only controversy is, should he have let him go completely to sleep, or was it too early?
Absolutely.
It's not really a controversy of whether the fight was going to change.
Yes. Yeah.
And so for me, what's the controversy? There's no controversy. I expect to see Chiesa bounce back from this and do well. He didn't make it to number 6 by accident. I don't expect to see him go away. He's dealt with adversity in the past very well and come back better and stronger.
Yeah,
continue to see him improve as an athlete. And these things happen. And for me, I look at this and I go, I'd love to get it out that here's what I see happening. But at the end of the day, it's not going to get overturned.
Right.
When fights like this, decisions like that don't get overturned. There was nothing wrong. And it's just time to move on. Let's, for us, we appreciate the fight with Chiesa. We appreciate all the hype and the build-up. We wish him the best. And maybe we'll meet him again in the future. But right now, we're really looking forward. We're looking at running to the title, not going back and fixing a problem that's really a problem for someone else, not us.
Yeah, 100%. And I agree with that, by the way. But I think the 2 examples I would tell people listening, like Luke Thomas did a really good example where he was talking about as far as people, the angle that I'm talking about as far as, like Robert said, okay, at that point, are we going to let him go out or not? And all we have to do is look at previous examples. And Luke Thomas brought up like Machida getting choked out by Jones, Nathan Coy being choked out recently. But 2 examples that I'll point out too, because it talks about the pattern of arms going limp, which I think is a big key here that Robert talked about, and how that's a habit for people going out. Well, it's also a habit for people tapping that no one brought out. And the 2 examples I'll bring up: Damian Maia versus Carlos Condit. Carlos's arms go really strangely limp. Remember that? And then he taps out. And then we also have Gleison Tibau's last fight against Abel Trujillo in 2015 in Brazil, where Trujillo had him back mounted, flattened out, dead to rights, and Abel's arms went limp, and they went limp aside from to the hands to the side, nowhere near his neck. And as soon as the ref called it, Abel's hands come up to hand fight, and he got up in protest, similar to Chiesa. And that was probably the closest example to it. And there's something to be said for that. So people that are, I think people are a little overly harsh on Yamasaki. I think need to look at those two fights. And, as far as, like Robert said, I'm sure Chiesa believes it 100%. I'm sure he does. But, even the best. Look at David Carradine. He's miscalculated a few chokes in his time, right? And that guy's a kung fu expert.
Right.
Sorry, there's a poor joke there. But but hey, Doc Brown's did some miscalculations. He ended up in the Wild Wild West. It worked out for him. I agree. Let's all move on.
Yeah. Here's a fight you're close to. Remember Holly Holm? She had the reaction of going out and then coming back. It was like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like she was in and out. Tamisha?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So there was, I believe there was an unconscious moment and back to conscious, able to start to defend again and then tap,
yeah, it's not uncommon. I mean, it's, people go in. I've had fighters. I've watched Chris Lieben early on in his career, and I can't remember. It was a wrestler that got into MMA, and he had a mean choke out of Washington. I can't think of his name. Ridiculous guillotine. And we were right in the corner, and Lieben passed out twice and came to, and the choke never got let go of. Had the ref seen the angle I was at, he should have stopped the fight, and Lieben ended up getting up and throwing a left hand and knocking the guy out. But it's like, these things happen. It's just like a flash knockout. A guy gets knocked out, comes to. It doesn't mean you weren't knocked out. It doesn't mean the ref shouldn't have stopped it. It's just part of how this goes. And it's, like I said, it's unfortunate that there's some controversy around it in one way. In another way, we're still talking about Kevin Lee. And that's a good thing. Like, I think that Kevin, like, for me, the real focus is where's he going? And I think a lot of people are underestimating him and what his ability is, and we're really looking at moving up. Kevin's theme has been 25 to life. Like, when I turn 25, I'm winning a title, and right now he's on pace for that, and we're looking forward to what the UFC brings for that next fight and where we're headed with it.
Do we have an update on his knee?
No, not yet. I
saw an ankle turn when he
I'm not
lost
sure
his
what
balance.
happened.
He either punched/pushed him down.
Yeah,
I saw the ankle turn there. Could it be the?
I really think it happened. I watched that again a couple of times, and I really can't tell what happened. He didn't get hit clean. It wasn't a knockdown. Mm-hmm. He was stepping back. The punch hit him on the shoulder, and I don't know if his ankle rolled a little bit. I don't know if his knee went. I don't know if he just started to slip. I'm not sure if that's when he hurt his knee, honestly. He could have hurt his knee in a body lock, and with all the pressure he's putting on and getting slammed. Who knows when it happened, but the initial report from the doctor afterwards was he didn't think it was anything major. We're obviously going to get that tested now that we're home, but there's no update. But, I mean, he's moving around, and it doesn't seem to be serious right now.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah,
yes, very good
That's
news.
definitely good news. And a second, something that Robert said earlier, too, and I agree. I don't think people are looking at the technical improvements or not. I mean, people that were surprised that Kevin Lee was good from the back mount kind of shows that you weren't paying attention to his last couple fights. But even more impressive that no one's talking about is the fact that Kevin Lee was on his back and had to scramble back to his feet without getting his back taken by one of the best back takers in the division. As you know, wrestlers, and Kevin Lee's cost him a couple back takes in fights before where you'll turtle out and get your back. And he just did everything, the butterflies to the underhooks, like everything was on point in the heat of things. And again, it kind of was frustrating because I'm like, no one was talking about these things. Like, that's really impressive there. And
yeah.
But I just had to get that out. But yeah,
we drilled those things relentlessly. I mean, we didn't take Chiesa lightly. Right. Like I said, I mean, we've trained hard for every fight, but I've never seen Kevin look more focused in camp than this fight. I mean, we didn't leave a stone unturned, and we addressed those things because really, if Chiesa had got on the back first, we expected that to be a problem. It was. He's very good from there. So we did a lot. It's that ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We obviously worked some back take defense, some rear naked choke defense. We worked with guys like Vinny Magalhaes. And, I mean, we had some really, really strong work in that area. But we spent far more time working takedown defense and getting up without giving up the back. And again, that has been something in the past where with a lot of guys, it's not that big a deal. Turn, get up, they're not that great. But with a guy like Chiesa, you can't afford to let him on the back. Really no different than you can with Kevin. If you let Kevin on your back so far, that's a problem. You can't have that be the case.
He was calm as well when Chiesa first got, it looked like he was trying to maybe set up a guillotine. It was against the fence. He looked calm there. He looked calm when Chiesa was trying to set up a triangle. I like that he is breathing, thinking, and executing while he's in there. And I think the one thing that can hurt fighters, too, when you're in with somebody who's experienced and scary as Chiesa and strong, is panic.
Yeah.
And he doesn't seem to have
I don't think
that.
Kevin knows what panic is.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a very intelligent man, and he's got a very high fight IQ. That terminology gets thrown around a lot, fight IQ. Well, what is that? For me, fight IQ is taking past experiences, other people's experiences, and running through scenarios in your mind and constantly questioning what would I have done? What should I have done? What should they have done? How would I react in that situation? And Kevin spends a lot of time watching fights, films. We record all of our rounds, and we go back and watch them. We break them down. We pick apart everything. After every win, we go back and watch fights, and we pick them apart and improve every mistake that we can. And I think that leads to that. There's not a spot where he feels like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I think that's a very important piece in not feeling panic. Panic sets in when you get to a spot and you go, I haven't been here before. And we regularly start in bad positions. We regularly bring in guys and put them in spots. We regularly bring in guys that are better than him, a little bigger than him, and put him in these spots over and over until it just doesn't seem like a bad spot anymore. It just seems like a spot. And I think that's an important piece of why he's progressing as well.
Detroit in December. That looks to be set. Early December, and of course he'll be a big part of that, if not a headliner. He's thrown out Khabib. He's thrown out a few names, and then of course him and Ferguson got into it on the post-fight show.
That was pretty funny.
There's also the name of Barboza in case the UFC preserves Khabib versus Ferguson. They may. I would disagree with that if they did, but what do you want for Kevin? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think any of these are good fights right now. I mean, I like the Khabib fight. I actually think that Khabib has a ton of steam. But I don't think he's a better wrestler than Kevin. And I think Kevin's stand-up, I mean, the work he's done with Dewey Cooper over the last 3 years in conjunction with us working together, but in particular, what Dewey's done with his stand-up, a lot of people are underestimating. You know, people look at the Trinaldo fight and they go, oh, it was another rear naked choke. He's a grappler. And it's like, that rear naked choke was set up with a head kick. And after he had got rocked, recovered, came back to the corner, refocused and came out very professional, reset his game, didn't make the same mistake, and then set up his own head kick, put him down, and then finish with the rear naked choke. So I feel like with Khabib, we have a lot of ways to win and could really steal that thunder. So that is a fight I'd like to see. But, I mean, Eddie Alvarez is in that mix. I mean, any of those are good fights for us. Look, we want to run for the title, and if you think you're good enough to get the title, give us who's next. So
now I would argue that Ferguson's 1 and Khabib's 1A. I would have said that prior to what happened in March when the fight didn't happen, it was the other way around because there's an O next to Khabib's L record.
Right.
He didn't make weight. Ferguson did. Ferguson struggled as well. He even confessed it. He goes, man, I was close to, like, blacking out as I was getting them last pounds off. But he made it. He made it to the scale. He was good to go. Khabib wasn't. So I would feel like they flipped. And so I'm thinking, is Ferguson a bigger fight than Khabib at this point? Or why? Like, that's why I'm getting, like, where do you side with what does Robert Follis think?
I mean, again, one is who's going to be available, what fights are the UFC going to make. I mean, it doesn't really matter what I think. I mean, I think, like I said, I think there's a bunch of good fights there for us. And I think stylistically, I think Kevin's a handful for any of those guys. And not that we take any of those guys lightly. I think Tony Ferguson's an amazing fighter. I mean, you look at what he's doing and how he fights. His style is very dynamic. He's hard to get a read on. You take Khabib where you know exactly what he's going to do but stop it, and nobody's had that answer. I think we have the answer. And, I mean, we've already been studying these guys now for a while, making a plan to move up through those. And, again, Eddie Alvarez is on that table. I mean, you know what I mean? You've got any of those guys in that top 5 right now, top 4.
So you guys aren't even thinking about the game of who's the easier matchup or anything. It's like whoever they give you, let's go. We got to fight all the
Who's
best
easy
anyway.
now?
Well, let me give you this example. When McGregor was coming through the rise, a lot of people felt like they were directing the career towards Aldo but away from certain fighters. And I don't seem to feel like that you guys are thinking that in any possible way. It's like whoever's there, we'll do it. I've even heard him throw Barboza, and he's completely different from Ferguson or Khabib's skill set.
I mean, I think Kevin has the ability to match up well with any of those guys. I really do. I think he's coming up. I think he's going to put that belt around his waist if we can ever get it free from who's that guy that's boxer now?
McGregor.
Oh, McGregor. Yeah, forget it.
Yeah.
It's hard to remember that name. Hard to
All
remember
right,
that name.
We're going to take this break here. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. We have Dan Tom in the house at the MMA Analyst. The A is shared by MMA and Analyst. We also have Robert Follis in studio, co-head coach at Extreme Couture at Robert Follis. Call in 866-522-2846. We'll be right back after this break.
up, down, down, left, right, BA, start. You told me that code would get rid of them. Yeah, well, they're still here. Okay, but now they know I tried to kill them. Hold on, Mom. Here are George and Goes.
All right, we're going to take some calls, 866-522-2846. We also want to talk about Brent Primus. And again, I went home and watched that fight again after having the conversation we did with Brent yesterday, the new champion at Bellator, their lightweight champ, and after hearing what Chandler had to say on Ariel Helwani's show, watched it again, and you know, more stuff I believe was uncovered. I think a lot of us can always benefit from going back to watch a fight. So we'll get to that in just a second. But I do want to ask you one thing here. As a coach, as a head coach to Kevin Lee, bright prospect, do you remember when Leandro Santos KO'd him, right? After that, if Kevin got hit, I think anybody that's a Kevin Lee fan, which I'm very open about being, I always wondered, oh, wow, like how long will it take to shake that off? Because when you get the KO, the more time in between the next KO, the better, you know? And what I've noticed is he, you know, going back to the fight in Brazil, he's able to shake them off more and more. He's distancing himself from the Santos KO. How important is it to fight in March, get this fight out of the way, and to not even be touched in the chin, and now you're not fighting to December? Do you guys often think about that, the removal from the last KO and not sustaining that kind of damage?
Well, for sure, you don't want to keep taking damage. I mean, you know, you think about that constantly. I mean, we're, you know, like I said, we work on it continuously. Dewey Cooper does an amazing job, hands up, head movement, footwork, and we can continue to see those things improve. And, you know, then I tell guys all the time, where's all the money in your career? It's at the end. So anything we can do to extend your career, the safer we can stay in a fight, the less damage we can take. We pay attention to how we spar and try and limit that kind of work. So you're always thinking about that. But I haven't really paid attention to it as an issue with Kevin because he really shook that off. I mean, he took a few weeks, took it a little bit hard, and then he was like, okay, I'm done with that and ready to move on. And it's really been a non-issue with him.
We went through the same thing with GSP. He got lit up by Matt and Sarah, and every time we got to about the 9th, 10th fight removed from Sarah, and I swear to you, when we would be breaking down fights, someone would say, all you got to do is touch GSP and that chin. I'm like, that chin? It was once in his career, and it hasn't happened for like 3 or 4 years. Enough with that one already. We went through it in another cycle with Edson Barbosa.
Anybody can be knocked out.
He got lit up, and then all of a sudden Edson had to shake that off, you know. And I was wondering if Kevin would have to go through the same thing because I would see breakdowns and things like that.
I haven't really heard anybody talk about it. Honestly,
well, you know, when you read about it,
I haven't.
They'd say that chin is suspect. I'm like, that ain't suspect, man. I mean, he got caught solid by a punch he didn't see coming, or what was it, spinning elbow, right? Spinning back fist.
Yeah. I actually don't.
I believe that's what it was against Leandro Santos here at the Tough Alley.
It was
a straight right, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a counter. It was a counter cross.
He was
going.
That's what I thought.
Right into it.
Yeah, he was coming. Yeah, that's why I thought it was a straight right. So I was like, oh man,
I think the other shot, you know, the only other shot that I think, you know, rocked him second most of that. Obviously, that got the fight stop. Was his first fight with Al Iaquinta. Again, that was an early version of Kevin Lee, and that was a shot where he was stepping into, and Al, as we've seen subsequently, has some heavy hands. So yeah, I think, you know, it's really easy to blow these things out of proportion. You know, when you're just hanging on to certain sample sizes, you know, because those ring in your head. But
you know, it's an interesting thing. Something gets said. It gets said with authority, and then it becomes a truth. You know, right after that fight, he pops up. The commentators say that was an early stoppage. Dana says it, and now it is. And it's like with Kevin, it's like, oh, you go back and look at it, and it's like, well, wait a minute. But once it gets out there, it's hard to undo that momentum because everybody jumps on it then. And you know what I mean? It's like, well, wait a second. You haven't taken a second to slow this down. Let's replay it a couple times. So I think things like that get going and get said, but they're not necessarily always true.
Yeah, I mean, that stoppage reminds me of, you know, especially when Kevin Lee's trying to get up, and, you know, Santos is behind him, hitting him with shots, and he's still trying to get up, like, willing through it, and that actually is very similar to Robert Whittaker being stopped by Stephen Thompson, and, you know, granted there was a weight, he moved up in weight, and there's a different intangible there, but, I mean, if people were to say, oh, Robert Whittaker's got a bad chin, he's done, and then look at him now, and he's, you know what I'm saying? I mean, and they're both young guys, so, you know, you don't want to see anybody taking damage, much less too young, but if they're getting it out of the way early, and like you said, Gigi, they're distancing themselves, they're showing growth, like, I think that should be accounted for a lot more, obviously, than the small sample size, but like Robert said, it becomes a truth somehow, you know.
And there's a big difference between having a bad chin and being able to be knocked out. Everybody can be knocked out. Like, it's not a thing that is impossible. It really, it's about the points that you get hit. I mean, Chris Lieben got knocked out. Did that guy have a weak chin?
No.
Well, but he got knocked out.
Right.
So are these things mutually exclusive?
Yeah, he had a hard melon.
Yeah, he could, but you hit him right on the tip of the chin, and that dude had problems like everybody does.
Mark Hunt.
Yeah,
they still credit him with a great chin, even though he's been knocked out, and he still can get knocked out. But like you said, we still credit him with a good chin.
But it was said first that he had a great chin,
right?
And that became the truth.
Yes.
Right. So I just look at those things, and it's like, whatever.
I was wondering if I was the only weirdo that thought about that, because that's the first thing I thought was when the fight was over. I remember telling Jules and Goes, saying, and he took no damage, and I was thinking any shots at all.
Yeah.
I don't remember one shot at all. Maybe the push punch that put him down when he twisted his ankle.
He took one straight left.
Yeah, I love it when the fighters get through the fights and don't have to take any of that type of damage. Oh man, that's like a super W. A W times 2. You know, because it's just less wear and tear, man. It's bad enough what they have to go through these training camps.
For sure. Well, you see some of these fights, and you get to the end of it, and you go, those two will never be the same. Like it's unbelievable what these guys go through in some of these wars. So again, using those different skills, using your wrestling, using the clinch, being smart, not just standing and trading. I mean, these are things that we really study and work.
Right.
Because man, unless you're favorably ahead in the striking department in a huge way, standing there and trading blows is a bummer way to make a living.
Right. The game's going to get more scientific, so I think people will think outside the box like that. Think about, you both know a little bit about baseball or know baseball? Think about your closer. If he has a sore shoulder and you're in a series, but if you win the game, ain't nothing, and he doesn't have to go in there and he gets another day or two of rest. Same thing. That's all I'm thinking about. Is distancing 100%. Himself from
keeping
the
that body fresh for sure.
Exactly. Because the big fights they're just going to keep getting bigger and bigger, you know. Okay, let's talk to some junkies here from Junkie Nation. Abel from Santa Ana, Cali Refrigeration. What's up, Abel? You ready and willing?
Hey, yes, sir. Abel from Santa Ana, Cali Refrigeration. What's up, guys? I haven't really watched the show right now, so I don't really know who's there in studio.
We got Robert Follis from Extreme Couture. He just coached Kevin Lee to a win over Michael Chiesa. And we have Dan Tom, the MMA analyst, who comes in here and breaks down fights like no other.
Awesome. That's one topic I wanted to talk about, Kevin Lee. Everybody's talking about, the referee jumping in there too quick and everything, but I was looking at the replay, and if you see Chiesa's defending with both hands, then all of a sudden it looks like he can, let's go. And it looks like he's, when you want to get air or something on you, so you kind of do that little wave like, oh, man, it's hot in here. So he kind of did like a little flinch of that.
Yeah.
And then that's
like a schoolgirl when she sees her favorite rock star. Oh, yeah, I get you.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah, so I'm thinking, hey, that for me, if I was a ref, that would be a reason for me to oh, damn, wait a minute, he's out. Let me run in there and stop it. And that's pretty much what he did, I think. Right after he did that little flinch, I think he stopped it. But yeah, that's what I saw.
All right, thank you, Abel.
So that was a good call, All right, guys. Well, that's pretty much it. Talk about weak chance. Let's talk about Keith Jardine, man. That guy was always either in or out, and sometimes when he got hit with small shots, he was out, and when he got hit with hard shots, sometimes he stayed in there. So that guy's chin was kind of unpredictable. But anyways, I'll let you guys go with that.
Thanks, brother.
I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
All right, bye. Keith Jardine went 15 minutes with Chuck Liddell. I remember that in Anaheim, California. I don't remember much about all of his fights specifically, but it was a tough mofo back in the day. I do want to say this. Do you guys believe that Yamasaki, because he's been criticized for letting fights go too long, maybe was overcompensating, and maybe that's why he crouched, and the minute he saw any form of attrition, he was like, wait a minute, I got to stop this right now? You think that weighs with the officials, and from fight to fight, certain momentum that you carry, certain reputation. I think people can get shook up, not just athletes, but officials as well.
I mean, yeah, in the sense of like you guys will use a metaphor in basketball, refs will have a chance to kind of correct the call if they feel like they might have done a bad one later in the game, whereas you don't get that chance in this game. So maybe it compartmentalizes in that way, which could have happened. But an example you guys said on the show, I agree with. I think that scenario happens 10 times, and just from the fact that Chiesa showed going limp, I think there's a good chance that even without all the past stuff with Mario that could be in Mario's head, I think he could stop it like that anyways, and justifiably so. So
I think it had less to do with going limp and more to do with the fact that his hand looked like it wanted to tap. That's what I think he was interpreting. And other than the two guys fighting, I can't think of a worse job in MMA or a harder job in MMA than being the ref. Like I said, for all these guys that are critics, I would love to see them go ref some amateur fights and try and make every call just right. I'm telling, like, even judging can be very difficult because you're watching it live. I mean, these things are happening fast, and like I said, if he'd have let it go 2 more seconds, I got money that says everybody would have said, look, he was trying to tap and you didn't save him. Why'd you let him go all the way out?
Yeah.
Like, why'd you stop it so soon? I mean, I just think that you know, and I think you're right. I think
so fast,
I think there's some things that play in. I mean, refs are human too, and I mean, as thick-skinned, like people have said, oh, have you thought about ref? And I'm like, I care way too much what people think about me to do that job. It is awful. I cannot imagine the heat that they go through and how they manage that and go on and do well.
It's all happening too fast. When two human beings are colliding like that, it's happening really fast. Replay, it has its benefits, but boy, does it suck because it really makes people that are trying to do their job as best they can look terrible at times, you know? I mean, in football, same thing. They're holding on. You should see how often they're holding the fence or their shorts, and the refs are trying to catch it all, but also watch what's happening between the fighters. It is a
and how
difficult,
many replays do we see now
job
in those sports? Some of the time. I mean, but we don't go, oh.
Grapplers or 2 grappling exchanges. Paul said where I would the argument not so much that let him go out, which I'm for that argument, but I also thought I saw a tap coming and I was just almost upset in the emotion because I'm like, oh, it looked like he was just about the tap, but I agree with everything y'all are saying. Continue.
And look, of all the bad calls we've seen in MMA, I don't think that ranks up there.
That's
very
on
high.
the lesser end at all.
That's on the way lesser end. Like you know, I thought that Dana's reaction and some of the people's reactions to it was a little bit over the top. And it's like I get you want that main event to have no controversy, you don't want anything, but it's again things happen in real time. And again, oh, you let it go too long. Oh, you stopped it too soon. It's like what is she Goldilocks? He's Goldilocks. He did everything's just right. Like you're going to make some mistakes. It's not going to be perfect. And for me, it would have been a problem. If we looked at it, he hadn't gone limp. He was still fighting it, and he stopped it. That's a problem. But I didn't see this as a real problem.
Marco?
Quick on the Kevin Lee next fight, there is 2 scenarios for me that will work for him. The winner of the Johnson-Gaethje fight, because they're going to headline next week on the Ultimate Fighter finale, or Edson Barboza. Everybody else kind of sort of played themselves out. Nate Diaz is not going to take the fight because he's waiting for Conor to come back for the trilogy. He's demanding way too much money for a fight with Kevin. I mean, he wouldn't take it. And, of course, if Conor doesn't come back this year, they have to clean the picture of the interim title, and the 2 highest-profile guys in the division are Khabib and Tony. We've been waiting for the fight forever. I mean, when it happened, everybody's going to geek out like little girls watching freaking Justin Bieber. So, don't tell me that is not the fight that we want to see. We want to see that fight. And when they announce it, we're going to be happy about it. So, Kevin, one more signature win that will be Edson Barboza for me or the Gaethje Johnson fight. Well, I'll leave you guys. Catch you guys tomorrow.
All right, see you, Marco. Well, there are some possibilities out there. On August 26th, the McGregor thing will be done. We'll see how he comes out of that fight. I believe Ferguson is holding off on that fight before committing to anything else because he could just get the next shot.
Right.
Again, no disrespect to Khabib, but I feel like he slightly disqualified himself by not making weight, and Ferguson at that moment is the man right now. He doesn't need to fight an interim title unless Conor comes out of that fight so damaged that he needs to take more time off before coming to MMA. Then we have to have some sort of an interim, and I guess Khabib would qualify as next. I don't know. I don't know how the UFC will treat that, but I think Ferguson could await Conor already. That makes Khabib available for Kevin, for Edson, and then he's right in throwing out Johnson-Gaethje winner, especially Gaethje, a former champion out of another league. We've seen Eddie Alvarez get that type of treatment. We've seen Cowboys and Cerrone's coming out of WC get that type of treatment, and Gilbert Melendez also got that type of treatment where there was some respect coming out of the other league towards a former champ, but Gaethje has to look good against Johnson. So it gets real complicated, but 55 is getting fun again. All right, now I promised before, and we'll do it when we come back. We got to take our next break. We got to talk about Brett Primus and that situation that happened at Bellator the night before when he defeated Michael Chandler via doctor stoppage on a technicality, but what should have been is a TKO because the referee, in seeing what happened and the fighter not being able to continue, the fight should have just been waived at that point. We'll talk about that when we come back. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. Robert Follis, Dan Tom in the house. let's warm things up because we'll carry on in the second hour. We'll talk, spread our wings a little bit more on the topic. But Brett Primus defeated Michael Chandler at Bellator NYC the night before. It was their pay-per-view. This was for a title. Chandler's the lightweight champion going into the fight. Brett Primus 5-0 as a Bellator fighter, 7-0 overall, 7-0 overall. I mean, undefeated fighter, tough guy. He comes in as a massive underdog. And we had just seen prior to that Aaron Pico go down. So we were thinking, wow, full moon, what's going on here? And sure enough, what looked at that time to be a bizarre ending where a fighter hurt himself and couldn't continue doesn't appear to be so. Brett Primus was on our show yesterday, and he confirmed what I was reading on social media, that it was leg kicks that landed on Michael's leg that shut down the nerves is what stopped Michael from being able to plant and him further injuring his foot, his ankle, and he feels like he's not getting credit for that. Now, that's something you said you recognized right away when you were watching the fight, Robert.
Yeah, absolutely. We were watching it, and he threw the first calf kick, and I said he should keep going to that. That's going to be money because, you know, Brent's
because of the nerve possible damage,
well,
or just because you knew that?
Not specifically.
Was
I mean,
it Chandler's
you know,
reaction?
Like
What'd you see?
You punch people in the head hoping to knock them out, but you just keep hitting them in the head anyway.
Right.
I mean, there's damage and there's damage. So it's like repeatedly. It's tough to condition a calf.
Okay.
Right? So it's not that you're getting that specific spot every time. You see lots of calf kicks. That's not the usual outcome, the same as you see people get hit in the head and getting knocked out isn't the usual outcome.
Right.
But it doesn't stop you from trying for it, right? But it'll make a guy limp. It'll make a guy less explosive and move less effectively. And you know, Chandler is so explosive and moves so fast. And Brent's kind of a big, little bit slower, great grappler, but his stand-up is not on the same level as Chandler. And I thought that going to the calf and trying to slow him down was a brilliant idea. And when he hit him the first time, you could tell it hurt him a little bit. He hit him the second time. He reached down, if I remember right, and rubbed his leg. Then he stepped back and tried to hide it. And it's like he did that because it hurt him bad. Mm-hmm. People don't step back and change leads when they've been kicked in the thigh once. They step back and start changing leads when those kicks have landed enough to hurt. But again, you look at the thigh muscle and then you look at the calf, and I think that damage was done, and I think he did catch him on that nerve. And then when he stepped back in that exchange, his foot wasn't working right because of it, and people are calling that the fluke, but his foot wasn't working. It's like saying a guy got hit, was almost knocked out, and rolled his ankle, and, oh, it's because of the ankle. No, it was because of the damage done by the strikes that weren't done by accident. Those were smart moves in a very smart camp.
Mm-hmm. Did you recognize that it could be nerve damage when it first happened?
Just because it was a calf kick, and those are rare. Like, I understand, you know, Michael Chandler is trying to say, hey, oh, good for him, so he practiced a leg kick. Like, I totally get that stance. I'm a Chandler homer, but the fact that it was a calf kick really puts the side on Primus, where that is a specific thing to train. It's a smart thing, and it does damage. Just, unfortunately, the fight didn't play out a couple seconds later to see it.
All right. I'll tell you what, we're going to tackle this again in the second hour. We'll continue with this. We got Robert Follis and Dan Tom here in the house. We're talking Brett Primus versus Michael Chandler. Brett Primus is their new champion. And it was a fight that just unfolded in a bizarre fashion. Same with Chiesa and Lee, where the winner didn't get as much shine as he should have. And that's what we're here to do. Kind of sort that out when we come back. It's SiriusXM, Rush 93. Stay close.
You may find yourself living in a shotgun shack, and you may find yourself in another part of the world, and you may find yourself behind the wheel of a large automobile, and you may find yourself in a beautiful house with a beautiful wife, and you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here? Letting the days go by, let the water hold me down. Letting the days go by, water flowing underground into the blue again. After the money's gone, once in a lifetime, water flowing underground. And you may ask yourself, how do I work this? And you may ask yourself, where is that large automobile? And you may tell yourself, this is not my beautiful house. And you may tell yourself, this is not my beautiful wife. Letting the days go.
Talking about Brett Primus and that fight that he had, you know, yours truly, that night I thought I was witnessing a broken ankle from Chandler. And then upon hearing and seeing replays over and over, that nerve behind the leg, man, that's brutal. And you were telling me that in Muay Thai, that's always been outlawed.
Well, I don't know if it's always been outlawed, but it's in the sport now. It's illegal to kick below the knee, and nobody's explained to me why. But the only thing I could think is it works too good.
Yeah.
If you got two Muay Thai guys doing nothing but calf kicks, fights would end very quickly.
Do you remember I asked you? I'm trying to remember. I saw you about 2 months ago, and a fight had just happened, and there was a uniqueness to it, a certain strike. I'm gonna see if it hits me. Anyway, and I asked you. I go, Coach, when something like this happens, do you guys come in immediately on Monday and try to sort out this technique? And you told me, yeah, you know, sometimes obviously we might, but sometimes we have our agenda set so forward that we may not get to it. But obviously you guys are always learning from the fights that you see. Tell me about this kick. Is that something that's going to get addressed this week?
This is something we've been working on with our team for a while. And I mean, if you ask any of my fighters if I encourage them to kick in the calf, a lot I do. And I mean, one of the things that you see, it's a really interesting thing. It's a very effective kick, but most MMA fighters are learning striking from guys that did kickboxing and Muay Thai. Right, and in those rules, you can't kick the calf, so they don't think to work it. You know, there's a rule in collegiate wrestling: when you hit the ground with a body lock, you have to let go and move on to something else unless you're in the middle of a pin. Right. So asking a top level wrestler, why do you have to let go of the body lock when you hit the ground in wrestling? Number one answer I get is because it's against the rules. But I'm like, why is it against the rules? And they're like, it's against the rules. Well, it's against the rules because it works too good. They want action. They want things to happen. They don't want things to end that way because it's so dominant. Well, these things aren't illegal in MMA. So I spend quite a bit of time studying what's, you know, obviously eye pokes are going to be illegal for a reason. But there's things that are illegal in other sports that work very well in ours that we're looking at. And like you said, even when somebody does something, and it works really well, I'm always asking, is that a fluke thing? Is that something that can be repeated? And you know, think about Chiesa doing a snap kick. Prior to that, I was one of the people preaching, oh, that karate snap kick, that's a bunch of BS. And now we train snap kicks. Like
the one he did on Randy?
Prior to that, he was hitting it on people.
Okay.
But I mean,
yeah, we saw
he was really
in 1 year.
He was really the first guy that came out and was using that style, and everybody was like, "Oh, karate doesn't work." And all of a sudden, you see this influence of him switching leads, moving snap kicks. You see, you know, Stephen Thompson and Wonder Boy doing these things, and all of a sudden that became a wave, right? I don't know if you've ever been surfing, but it sucks. It sucks trying to catch up to a wave, but it's fun riding it. So as a coach, I'm always watching what's happening in this and seeing, is this a wave taking off or is it a fluke?
Shoot, speaking of that wave, we saw Tim Bosch use that snap kick you were talking about to Johnny Hendricks to bring the, you know, McGregor to break down Chad Mendes. That wasn't talked about, but that's what was the quiet killer there. But that's a great point. Absolutely.
Yeah, so you see these things and they start to become a trend. And as a coach, man, I hate playing catch up to a trend. You know what I mean? And not that it'll fit every fighter. Every fighter will use all those tools. But I want to use cutting edge tools as they emerge. And I mean, our sport is growing so fast. You know that.
What about the defense to a trend?
Well, and the same thing. I mean, well, here's how you figure out the defense. You start using the offense. You know, up front, it's a matter of let's put this in, and oftentimes, well, what's the defense to it? I'm not sure. I mean, some of them are obvious. I mean, how to block a kick, but some of the things that come up in grappling, new positions, and you go, what's the defense? And you go, I don't know. Let's get there and start working it. And you have to kind of reverse engineer that problem and get after it so that it doesn't become a problem.
Interesting, man. The sport is fascinating. 866-522-2846. Justine Kish and Felice Herrig had a fight, and in going through the rules, we talked about this yesterday. When a fighter like Kish, am I saying that right, Kish? Kish. Defecates herself, the correct sequence should have been that when the referee saw it, the fight should have been waved off. And this happened in the second round. It should have never made it past that point and to the third round. Now, you were telling me that when you saw it appeared the referee didn't see it. But I have to believe in between rounds, and that's what I want to find out. Was this pointed out by either of the fighters, more than likely from the Herrig camp, or what? Because we just can't have that.
It should have been stopped for sure. I mean, that's a bigger problem reffing. Like, that's a big mess up because there was a lot of time to see that and fix it. That's not a flash thing. Even if he missed it right up front because he's watching the choke, rightfully so. Right. He shouldn't be looking at their legs. There's no problem down there for the most part. But as it hit the middle of the round and you see people wiping people down and there's, you know what I mean? Like, somebody should have been saying, hey, that happened and that fight should have ended. You can't have a fight continue with that happening. And it's a shame that's that true. And I mean, you got to love Kish for fighting through it and having a sense of humor afterwards about it. And because what an awful thing to happen as a fighter. But just how ridiculously tough is that woman? Oh, my God.
Yeah, that was definitely something, you know, I was looking at when breaking her down that, like, this girl's not going to stop. Even, you know, when you have her not her strong point on the ground, she has this crazy ability to bridge that you don't see a lot of at the higher level. But I'm sure you noticed it too, Robert. When someone has a really good bridge, you'll see him get out of a lot of bad situations, whether it's a practice room or in the fights. And I think that's when it occurred. Now, I agree with you guys 100%, by the way. But my question was it really round two? It might have been taken out of context, but the replay I saw, someone did a replay of when the incident happened, and the round counter said round 3 with about a minute 30 to go. Not that makes it any better. I agree.
I'm not 100% sure when it happened.
Neither am I.
I wasn't watching the fight that close because we were in the back, doing warm-ups and stuff. So I wasn't watching it like a fan would be. I was giving a few glances in between stuff.
I missed it.
Saw some of those pieces. I actually didn't know what happened until I was cage side, and Stefan Patry was pointing at the mat, and I thought he was pointing at blood. And then he's like, no, there's I don't know if I can say that word out here. There's shit there. And I was like, oh, God. Like, I didn't know when that happened. So I'm simply going on that it happened. I've seen pictures of it.
So
I haven't
was
studied
it wiped down that well?
No, they cleaned it up, but you can't get rid of the stain. I mean, they put antiseptic on, or, you know, they cleaned it up as best they could, but it's not going to be pristine. I mean, they clean up the blood too. But there's still blood stains. I mean, it's
UFC doesn't use that mat spray anymore, or is that just for the Fox shows of the early days to cover the blood? I heard they would do that, right? Like between the main card, they would do a little bit of mat spray or a clean to try to put less blood. So you figure they'd have something stand by, some kind of solvent or solution, right?
They cleaned it up as best they could, but it's it's a white porous. You know, you're not gonna without bleaching and taking a lot of time, you're not going to get that all out. But I don't think it was a safety problem, but it is a little gross. I mean,
I know you guys have a big mat at Extreme Couture. You guys aren't in any hurry to replace that one with the one from Oklahoma, right?
No, I don't think they'll give it to us. But if they did, we may cut a hole in it.
John Anik apparently spoke with you before the fight, and he noted in one of his fun facts that you had stated Kevin is one of the 2 finest athletes you've ever had the pleasure of working with in the sport. Who's the other one?
Chael Sonnen.
Chael Sonnen, okay.
Yeah.
Now, by that, do you mean, hey, these guys can do it all? I can take them to the batting cages and they'll hit it. I can throw them a football and they'll catch it. Well, or is this athleticism for MMA?
Well, I haven't actually seen Kevin play anything else. I mean, so I don't know.
Because I saw him shoot a basketball once and it wasn't pretty.
Not so good. We'll give him some time maybe. But
could it be just athleticism?
Really,
MMA?
how I judge that is how fast are they? How strong are they? How fast do they pick things up? I mean, I used to show Chael. We would be working on a series or a move in practice way back in the day at Team Quest, and you know he'd run it 8, 9, 10 times drilling, and then he'd get bored, and I'd be like, hey Chael, you black belt level at this now? And he'd be like, yeah, I got this. And then literally that day against some of the top guys in the world, he would do that series against them live, and when we were going hard. I mean, it's just, you don't see guys that can do those kind of things. Vinny went and worked with him for a camp, but he said the same thing. He goes, I would show him a series, and he would go out and pull that off against top other UFC fighters that were in training with him. Just an amazing athlete. Kevin is very similar to that. You show him something, how fast he is, his explosion, the strength that he has, how quickly he learns these things. I mean, those are the things that I define as an athlete. It doesn't necessarily mean they'd be great at everything, but pure athletics, I mean, he is a stud.
Mm-hmm. Do you go as far back to the Team Quest days as when they had the used car lot?
I was the head coach there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when that gym started, there was 5 students there, and I was coming in as.
So Lieben, Corey, Randy,
Lieben
Dan.
and Corey and all those guys came because we opened up a gym, and I was the guy that opened the gym part. So they were open, and we trained there, but there wasn't really a school. I came on as a partner with those guys, and we started. But I'm the one that recruited, brought guys in, ran regular classes. So guys like Lieben came on, Ed Herman came on, Chris Wilson, Nate Core, those guys all kind of came in and came up through that. But yeah, so I was there from. I started training with Randy, I think, in '97 or '98, and we opened up the Team Quest in 2000, I believe. So way back in the beginning.
Man, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
And my first UFC was in 2000. 17 years I've had guys in the
Which
UFC.
What? So even prior, you were SEG era as well?
That was UFC Japan.
Wow. That's crazy. Okay, sorry, I was distracted by what happened there. How long have you been in Vegas?
I've been in Vegas for 4 years now, just over 4 years.
Interesting. All right, let's take this call here. And you digging it? Vegas?
I love it. Yeah. Love Vegas.
You're staying for a while?
Got no desire to move. Love it here.
You don't miss the rain?
That's the reason. One of the main reasons I left Oregon was to get away from that rain.
Is it true there's so much rain in Oregon that the state flower is now mildew?
It should be.
All right. Let's go to Brian in Boston. What's up, Brian? How you doing?
Good, boys. How's everyone today?
Good, man. Thanks.
Yeah, I got a couple of thoughts. Just real briefly, that young lady who defecated in the cage, I think we can all be thankful that it wasn't someone like, Data 5000, and it was more of a smaller, more petite type person.
Yeah,
sure,
really.
Sure.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, and I'll tell you what, she's taking it like a champ, laughing it off, because this is something that in this day and age with social media, man, I'm telling you, man, people could send her into a serious depression because people want to, come at you in many ways. And I thought she took the best approach, and hopefully it just gets put past.
Look, the best she did, the absolute smartest thing, and that is she got out in front of it and made fun of herself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean when she said that, I got the shit choked out of me, and jumped out and got in front of it and played it off like, well, what do you say after that? You know what I mean? You could talk about it, but she's already done it herself, and now she can move on. And I hope she doesn't take it too serious because she's got a lot of potential in the sport for sure. I would hate to see that this be the thing that follows her and defines her as a fighter for sure.
Definitely.
I agree with you. I felt like she handled it. She handled it perfectly. You just laugh at yourself, and hopefully you're right. People on social media will just shut their asses and not mess around with it.
Yeah.
Hey, it was an interesting weekend of fights. I don't know if they were great fights, but I found a lot of them to be interesting. And the whole Mario Yamasaki thing, I am absolutely no fan of that guy. I think somehow, some way, he always makes himself an issue. But as like you guys, I have watched hundreds upon hundreds of fights, and Michael Chiesa's body language was strange. I've never seen a guy act like that in defending a choke. So I'm not going to kill him for calling that fight, which people seem to say is a second or two too early because his arms went up. It looked weird. He looked like he was going to tap. It was strange. So I'm not going to kill him for that. And then thirdly, on top of that, I don't think we need to see Kevin Lee versus Michael Chiesa rematch immediately. I think they're both making their way towards title contention, and maybe we'll see them fight again 5 to 6 fights from now. But I would like to see Kevin Lee sort of move on to the ultimate 155-pound testing ground and go up against killer Mr. Barboza. I think that would tell us a lot about Kevin, although I do like him as a fighter and as a personality.
Yeah.
What do you guys thought?
All right. We'll answer them one by one. I'll say this about Yamasaki one more time. Don't give me hell if you don't agree with my analogies here, but I'm trying my best. Have you've seen the Indianapolis 500, the Daytona 500? when the guy's coming, you're not supposed to give him the checker flag until he passes the line. Picture he's about, they're coming 200 miles an hour, so picture he's about a quarter of a mile away, and you just happen to get that flag out early. Or have you ever seen someone steal second, and he's so far out that you just see the umpire just start to go. He's gunned even before the tag has been made or anything like that. That's all he did, man. Was all he did, in my opinion, was just jump at what Robert said, a combination of him flinching, from going limp to convulsing, that and the fact that he was starting to remove from consciousness. And all he did was come in a split second too soon. Not even 2-3 seconds, like a split second too soon. I believe that's how quick he was going to be out. That's one. Two, he asked about Kevin going to 70 at some point. When would you encourage that move? Because Kevin is a big 55er.
Well, they've talked about putting a 65 division in and making that mix. We'd love to see that.
Yeah.
I think Kevin's huge at 55, but he's not huge at 70.
Okay.
Right? He's got a little room to grow.
I can agree with that.
But I think 70 we're going to come in on the smaller side, and I think like when Benson moved up to 70, he's capable of beating some guys, but he's not going to be near as dominant. That size, that strength, that speed, it matters. And when you come up, and there's weight classes for a reason. So we have a tough cut every time, but we've never missed weight. Like, we make weight every fight, and until there's an interim spot, I don't see us making a change without something dramatically changing.
I also believe that's why it's important. Are we all right, by the way? I saw you take a call.
Yeah, we're okay. It was just a Facebook stream might have gone out for a second, but everything else is running good.
Cool, thanks, Dan. Another thing I was going to say was that's why I believe it's important to not run the fight back against Chiesa in Detroit. It's nothing against Chiesa. I like the guy. It's just that I also believe that Kevin, especially after seeing, he told us he was 180, not this past month, not yesterday, but the Monday before. He loses 24 pounds, makes weight, and then rehydrates to 81. That's a lot to put your body through.
Yeah.
Especially a guy that's in as shape as he is. And I don't want to see more of those. So I believe get to Khabib or Ferguson, get to your title fight. If there's some defenses there, great. And if 65 opens up or other opportunities move up, do it, because that just seems like a lot to put your body through. You know what I mean?
Yeah, until the commissions, that's a whole nother topic that I think is worth talking about, is the weight cutting and what happens. And until they move away from a day before weigh-in and they don't tighten up those things like ONE FC has, you're going to have guys cutting weight like this. It's if he moved up to 70, when they put 65 in, everybody's going to move up and max that out. It really seems like the commissions are waiting for something awful to happen. Somebody actually dying, getting permanent damage before they're going to make that change, which I think is a shame.
Frankly, guys, Khabib went through a lot. He didn't just miss weight. He went to the hospital. Now, I don't want to put his business out there or anything like that, because, of course, I wasn't there. But I've heard from enough people that was a serious issue. You talk about somebody dying. We should definitely not get nowhere near that. And guess what? That was a lot worse than just a guy who, maybe fainted and we recovered him and put him in some cold water and gave him some fluids. It's serious things, man. Serious stuff here that we're talking about. And I think those should be the red flags already.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Well, look what wrestling did. Wrestling had those. They waited till there was deaths, and then they instituted changes. And there was no money in wrestling. They weren't wrestling for money, and people were cutting as much weight as they could. Some of the stories I hear from some of the guys I've worked with in the past, and how much they would cut in one day to make it just for a tournament to get a medal, and they're not even getting paid for that.
Same day too, right?
Yeah, so it's like if the rules allow someone to get an edge by cutting as much weight as they can and coming back, they're going to do it. You're not going to say, well, people will just use common sense and not cut more. They're not going to do that, give up an advantage to someone, and then lose and be like, I should have been bigger. So really, this is a thing the commissions I wish could get out of a pissing match about and flexing over and really get on board. A commission's job is two things, and number one by far is fighter safety. And we know what weight cutting like this does to the body. We know the potential side effects of it for the kidneys. All these things, the knockouts that come afterwards. I feel like they're missing the boat on not addressing this now.
SiriusXM is now on Amazon Alexa. Just enable the SiriusXM skill. Log into your account and say, Alexa, listen to insert name, in this case SiriusXM Rush 93, on SiriusXM. Alexa will take you there. For more information, visit SiriusXM.com/Amazon Alexa. Brian, thanks for the call. Hopefully we answered all your questions. Let's go to Dean in Georgia. What's up, Dean? How you doing?
Gentlemen, how's it going? Dan,
Good.
welcome to the studio.
What's
Rob,
up, Dean?
welcome to the studio. Not much. So I had a couple of questions. One, because I'm so close, with that PFL 1, it's only shown on Junkie 4 fights. Do they have anything more than that?
For what?
PFL
The one with the
the
PFL
Professional
1,
Fighters
only
League.
shown-
It's 4 fights in Daytona in conjunction with a race on NBC Sports, June 30th. So that's coming up here this weekend, and it's on NBC Sports Network at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Just the 4 fights. Fitch and Foster's the main event. I thought he was talking about the Contender Series, which is starting up as well too. Sorry.
I had a couple of things. So this past week we had 2 promotions that put a lot of marketing into 0-0 fighters, and they both lost in the first round. It's like, they're putting way too many eggs in the basket trying to promote these fighters, such as I'm talking about Northcutt's sister, and then Aaron Pico. I mean, here's a guy that, although they had so many accolades,
it's a roll of the dice.
You have these other fighters like, Felice Herring, on a 3-fight win streak, and, people like that. She's complaining about not getting the push, and there's a lot of other fighters not getting the push in these other organizations. But here you have this 0-0 fighter, and here they are. They're just, throwing so much marketing and promoting them.